Hi there. Welcome back to the Superintendent, the podcast where we talk about what really matters to superintendents. And we talk about reemergence. Well, what does that look like for our staff, for our students, but also for ourselves? With us today is somebody who is, well, I would consider them an expert in this. He was the president of the Central Ohio Superintendents Association. He's the superintendent for Upper Arlington School District and has been since 2013. He's the president-elect for the AASA. But most importantly, and this is where he really needs a medal, is because he's actually one of the 4 friends that Dawn has on Facebook. And quite honestly, that's a terrifying feat. Paul, I have no idea. By the way, Paul,
it's an exclusive group. It's an exclusive group, definitely.
Yes.
I'm proud to be a part of it.
I have no idea. The imagination boggles, really. I have absolutely no idea what's going on there, and nor do I want to. And of course, we have Dawn Bridges with us, who's going to try and rein me in.
I'm going to rein you in. And, this is a secret underground society on Facebook. We have to be very careful who we're friends with.
Right. So,
Indeed.
why, which is why I'm not part of it. That's okay. So yeah, Paul, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I am doing well. It has been an incredible year. Yep. And I think it's been a year where we have had to rely upon one another more than ever. Mm-hmm. And I think relationships and friendships among superintendents have been strengthened because I just out of necessity. And so I am doing well, but I'm doing well because I have a great support system and I have people who care about me and help hold me up. I would not be doing well if I were on my own. That is for certain.
Right. So what's your biggest priority for your district at the moment, for your staff, for your kids? What are some of the things that you're thinking about?
Well, as we're sitting here today, we're finishing our first week of offering all in for our students. Okay. So we are coming up on 1 year of when our governor first closed schools in Ohio. So it was Thursday, March 12th at a press conference where the governor announced he was shutting down all schools in Ohio. They ended up being shut down for the remainder of the school year. That was the last day before spring break for us. And so we were immediately shut down. We started the school year in enhanced distance learning. And then since September, we've been in a hybrid model with the exception of a few weeks in December where we had some staffing models. But Monday of this week, we transitioned to all-in learning for the students in our school-based pathway. And so it has been a busy time for us to get ready for it. We're so excited to welcome the kids back on Monday, some of whom had not seen each other in just a long, long time. Oh, so it was the first day of school in early March. And in our district, we always call the first day of school Miracle Day. And we celebrate it as such because of all the miracles, right, that happen in classrooms when our kids and our teachers and staff are together. Wonderful, wonderful things happen in the lives of kids. And so we celebrated another Miracle Day on Monday when we came back to All In. So that's
Paul, can you share a little bit about how, the numbers that you have back? Because I know that there's discrepancies around how some can come back and some can't come out. And are you following 6 feet of distance? And so, what has allowed you to get to where you are and what percentage of students are back?
Well, so we're jumping right into it. And so we have about 6,400 kids. About 1,000 of them are in the online academy, and the rest of the students are in our all-in model. And so we made it clear that we're striving for 3 feet of a distance. We cannot maintain 6 feet in an all-in model. In our middle school classrooms, in our high school classrooms, we often are able to maintain the 3 feet. At the elementary level, we are not. Just the nature of the educational experience at the elementary level, distancing is just not possible. And so we have doubled down on masking and hand washing. We have our own local team of medical experts who have visited all of our buildings, looked at all the safety protocols. But there is one time a day that we maintain that 6 feet of distancing, and that's when our kids have lunch and take off masks.
Right.
And so we have spread out, and we have lunch in every corner of the building to make sure we can honor that during lunch. But it's been a good week so far, but an enormous planning to get to this point. Definitely.
Right, military operation for lunch.
I would say yes, Andrew, definitely.
Okay, so I mean, we talk about I mean, the trauma that kids you know, coming back to, you know, re-entering school with, but do you want to talk a little bit about, so we're talking about this for our kids, but what about us? What about you know, our soul care? What about, you know, us being able to model effective social and emotional you know, concepts? What do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, before he starts, I'm going to just jump in because I was one of the fortunate ones. I know that a lot of superintendents are so busy and they were not able to jump on and watch AASA's NCE conference. And Paul keynoted on it and it was amazing. So I'm going to just do that intro real quick because I can. So, yeah. Okay, you can answer the question, Paul.
Well, great. Well, you know what, Don, and thanks for tuning in. And I love the work that I get to do with AASA, such an important organization. And I did have the opportunity to speak at the national conference. And in the weeks leading up to the conference, my plan was to talk about the work of equity in our public schools, which is just incredibly important to me. And so I opened with that briefly, and then I transitioned to another topic because I just felt like it's not being talked about, and that is the well-being of the leaders in our public schools, and specifically of the superintendents. And I had been on a call with a COVID task force, which is meeting nationally to talk about how do we recover from this. And the superintendent from the Virginia Beach schools kind of paused the meeting at one point. This has been 6 weeks ago now, and just started talking about all the struggles that he's seen with superintendents all over the country. And then this long conversation went on from that. So that was really the event that said, okay, I'm going to talk about something different. And so I introduced this concept that I'd heard about from a friend called soul care. And it's about how do we as leaders really care for our mind, body, and soul. And I think that it was Alicia Keys that I think had come up with it originally. But I was really fascinated by that. And so what I did, and we can talk more about it, but I just feel it's so important for leaders because as I'm friends and colleagues with superintendents all over the country, I know superintendents are servants by nature and really practice this whole philosophy of leaders eat last.
Right.
And I think that during the pandemic, we have taken that a step further. And so where we are now is leaders aren't eating, right? And so I think we need to eat last, but we have to eat. And so I think our leaders are starving. And so I just felt this amazing call to talk about this and to bring this to the forefront, because I just believe deeply, if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't serve our students and our staff and our communities. And we've all been running a marathon after marathon after marathon for a year without a break. And we've got to eat, and we've got to eat. And so I shared some more specific ideas for how we can take some proactive steps to practice soul care in our lives so we can lead effectively.
Yeah. So what are some of those kind of just tangible things that we can actually do? Yeah, I mean, because I know for us at Right at School, we've been reading this book called The Happiness Advantage, which is a
great book.
And isn't it? And I've been just like, oh my, every page has got something. I'm just like, I need to do this. And, you know, and there's this one chapter where, you know, so we have all these ideas that, we our careers are centered around us trying to be, you know, to try and reach that happiness. But actually what he talks about is turn that on its head. If you have a positive mindset and you're able to do all of the things, your job, then your job will grow, and so it becomes this thing rather than the other way around. And so I've been fascinated reading this, and so it gives some ideas, but I'm really curious to see what some ideas that you have as well, Paul.
Well, I gave 3 steps, right?
Okay.
And so the first step was to make a soul care plan.
Right.
Make a plan, write it down. And so these can be simple things like, some of the things I'm doing, and you hear just a lot about this. I try to work out every morning. It really puts me in the right headspace, right? And so that is critical. I tried to stop looking at my phone and my email after about 9 o'clock at night, because you need time to power down, to turn off, so you can actually rest, right? And I'm no good to anyone if I can't rest, right? I've been trying to be really intentional about scheduling time, right, to do things that bring me joy, right? That can be just making sure I have time to Zoom with both of my kids who are in college, or with a friend, or having a date night with my wife. But I think we have to schedule things, even in the pandemic, we can look forward to. Trying to carve out time to have lunch every day, right? Huge things,
isn't that hard? It's so hard.
But the first step is, let's make a plan, right? And there were a group of us as superintendents who did this together in January, and that'll lead me to my second part of my steps, which is to be accountable. And so what this group of superintendents did is we made our plan, and then we shared it with each other, and we kept up with each other about what was going well and what wasn't. Right. I don't know how many times I have made a plan and not told anyone about it. Well, it's really easy not to follow through when it's a secret. But you know what? As soon as you share that with some friends, and you've got people who actually really, really care about you, who are saying, how are you doing? So did you work out? Did you take time for lunch? Did you turn off your phone? Right. So I think that the accountability part is really, really key. And then the third part, and this was the third step, and I think this is scary. And so before I shared this, I actually did it because I wanted to make sure I was practicing what I was preaching. So the third step is to share your journey, right? And so what I did, we have our leadership team here, and Dawn knows them. They are an amazing group of people, and I love them.
She always talks about how she wants to go and work for you.
I know.
Well, I want to work for her, so yeah. Don is actually a member of our team, by the way. So anyway, just so you know. But so what I did with our whole team is I shared my journey with them, right? And I shared the steps I was taking, right? Because I think as leaders, too often, we try to pretend that we have all the answers, and that we don't struggle. And when we do that, I think the other leaders in the organization feel like they have to have all the answers, and they aren't allowed to struggle. And I told this story, I'm going to tell it again now, that I was embarrassed by. And again, I think we have to be open in these things. And this happened in late January, and I'm not proud of it, but it happened. I was in the midst of a phone call with a great friend. And I was venting about some things because I was frustrated. And this friend just stopped me. And they said, "This is not you." And I said, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "You sound angry, bitter, and judgmental." And I've noticed that the last couple of times we have talked, this is not you. And I need to call you on this. Right. And I mean, I broke down on this call because I mean, that isn't me. Don knows me. That isn't me. But I was changing in a bad way because of all the experiences around me. And that experience really woke me up. And really, for me, was transformational in that I need I need to take care of me. If not, I'm going to quickly become a person I don't want to be. And I'm not going to be able to lead in an effective way. So I shared that struggle with the team, and we have an amazing team, and we're authentic with each other and real. But I think as leaders, if we really want to set the example, we have to be honest, right? About what's going well and what's not.
Right.
And so superintendents across the country are struggling, right? Principals are struggling, teachers are struggling, but we can't struggle alone. We have to lock arms, right? We have to lift each other up. And the pandemic's not over, and the recovery is going to take time. And this is something we're only going to be able to work through if we hang together. So I thought these simple steps were important, just to shining a light on the issue, right? And to make it okay to eat, right?
Thank you for
but leaders do eat. So
yes, and thank you for being courageous and sharing that. And I can say it frightens me even to turn on Twitter on every morning, because I keep seeing all these superintendents who've decided to retire, or people who are leaving the field at every level within in education, and that's super scary. But I hope that by sharing that story and by taking that step as a leader, it is making an impact. And as a matter of fact, I happen to be on a call with another superintendent in Ohio that I did not think at all would have been a part of your little thing. And I started to talk about you and this soul care, the project that you were doing. And he said, I know, I was a part of it. And it was so impactful because of the accountability piece. And he said the same thing, like the eating lunch, the littlest thing made the biggest amount of change in them, right? And so this is a very lonely position, but thank you for the work and the service that you are doing.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The accountability piece. I mean, I think about, the fact that you have somebody who's able to call you out on something as well, which, by the way, is not easy. But, the hardest thing to do is often the best, right? And so it's like, being able to have that person who's going to challenge you and say, hey, this isn't you. I'm seeing a big change in the way that you're acting. And of course, we keep coming back to this idea that we've got to be able to model this for our kids as well, and our staff. There's just so much going on there that, and it's that idea of like breeds like. If we're honest and if we're open and if we say, hey, this is me, then that encourages them to be, this is me, and even just anyone listening who's like, in that boat of, they're kind of getting beaten up and they're kind of thinking, this is way too much for me. The very fact that you've been able to kind of say and open that out for people who need to hear that, that shines a light on that. And that is when we can truly help each other.
And what, Andrew, you said something, all of that was good, but that whole sense of when you get to that point in some days, and we all have reached this point multiple times where it's too much. Right. We have to name that, right? And we have to say that, and we have to have, and we've talked about that here on our team, about when we have those moments and it's too much, we have to give each other a pass, right? And let that person step back. Maybe it's an hour, maybe it's a day, but we have to have each other's backs, because when you get to the point where it's too much and you try to push through that, you make errors. Right. And then
called a war for a reason.
Those up, right? Cleaning those things up takes even more time. So it just makes sense to give yourself that break when you need to do that. And quite frankly, that's happened to me a number of times throughout the pandemic. And sometimes it's just a half a day where I'm just like, okay, I got to step out for half a day. I need a half a day here, or else.
And that is okay.
Or else it's not going to be good. And it has to be okay.
That is not a weakness. Being able to be self-aware is not a weakness to say, I need a day. I need a break. This
is feeding this soul, right? And that can be just Yeah.
Right.
Do what you need to do.
And especially when you're in that, just digging your way through, and it's that constant, you can't see around you, can you? You just end up in that. And so you need other people around you to be able to say, hey, get your head out of that hole.
I have to say, though, part of this has got to be exciting, like a very exciting time to be in education, right? I mean, and probably a very exciting time, although very difficult and challenging, a very amazing time to be a leader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what? And you have to think about, right, what an honor it is, like in the midst of the biggest crisis in our world in a century, right? We get to lead, right? We get to be in a position to make a difference for kids and for families and for staff and for our and for our entire communities. And one of the things I've said to superintendents, specifically in my role with AASA, I mean, I really believe educators have been amazing, but when I talk specifically to superintendents really have been some of the only leaders at the local level who've had to make choices and make the decisions, right? And superintendents across the country have done that with amazing heart and amazing strength based upon facts when they've been hit from all sides, but they've kept leading every day. And I think that is leadership. And superintendents have been heroes in all of this. And I believe when the book is written on the pandemic, we're going to look back on what's happened at the local school level. And we're going to say that has been amazing and we can learn from it. And the other thing I know superintendents are saying around the country is, so as we're starting to look at coming out of this, which is exciting, we're not going to go back to the way we were before, right? We have learned so much. We are going to be transformed by this, right? And how are we going to be so much better for our kids and for our staff and our communities on the other side of this? And that's exciting. And I'm starting to see that light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that we are going to feel that excitement start to build as we start to see life after a pandemic.
Absolutely. Well, Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. I honestly, I need to read more of this apparently. But yes,
that's a great book. You're right.
It is a good book. We're so excited to hear what's happening in Arlington. It's just fantastic, and we truly appreciate you and all the stuff you're doing there. And thanks so much.
You're the best. Thanks for being my friend.
Thank you very much.
On Facebook. Otherwise, she wouldn't have a fan club, and then she'd feel all sad.
I am the president. So yes.
Thanks so much for being with us here today. Join us next time as we continue to talk about what reemergence looks like for us, for our staff, for our kids, and we look forward to seeing you then.